September 28th, 2025, AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. Week 4, 93,000 people pile into Jerry World to watch the Cowboys take on the Packers. Over the course of 60 minutes, it's been a back-and-forth contest, featuring a blocked extra point bringing in a defensive 2-point conversion, and you don't see one of those every day. A quick pair of touchdowns had the Cowboys up by 3 with mere seconds left. But because this is football, and teams just don't know how to play defense, Green Bay would get down to the 35 and kick a field goal to tie it up, and send things to overtime. There, Dallas would receive the ball first, and take their sweet time walking down the field. They would get all the way to the 4-yard line before a sack and incompletion would force them to settle for 3. Giving the ball back to Green Bay for a chance to win. They would be faced with a 4th down quickly, but escape with a big pass from Jordan Love. Then some runs would get them into field goal range. But forget about that. Who cares about a field goal? We're going for a win here. Nobody cares about a tie. Getting into the red zone with less than a minute left, the Packers pull the greatest effort of a team wanting to win ever, by throwing 2 passes that bring them the wrong direction, and then an incompletion, and almost running out the clock in the process. And so, with the entire country watching on Sunday Night Football, Brandon McManus would walk out there and chip in the 34-yard field goal, securing immortality in the process. In the MLB, ties used to be common due to it being too dark to play, but now they rarely happen, with the last one being in 2016. The NHL eliminated ties back in 2005, replacing them with the shootout, a controversial feature to say the least, but at least it produces a winner. The NBA has never had a tie, using as many overtimes as needed to make a decision. Hell, even college football has modified overtime rules so that there's no ties. And then there's the NFL, everyone's favorite wacky sports league that's included ties since day one. And every so often, they still rear their ugly head. And really, ties are boring. They're anticlimactic, and they're stupid. It's like watching a World Cup match end in a 0-0 draw. Looking at you, England and USA! But it doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon, and, well, the circumstances needed to produce some of these results have been, interesting, to say the least. In the 100-plus year history of the NFL, there have been 320 of these bad boys, ranging from low-scoring snooze fests to intense thrillers with a soggy finish. And... they're coming! Shit! Here they come! Naturally, the vast majority of these guys came in the league's early years, where they were still trying to figure out how to play football. 98 of the 320 occurred in the league's first decade, with 17 in 1920 alone. Imagine trying to launch a new sport and 17 out of the 133 games played resulted in ties. Yeah, that would definitely not fly today. On just the third week of play, there were two 0-0 finals. The Dayton Triangles versus the Cleveland Tigers, and the Chicago Cardinals versus the Chicago Tigers. About 2 months later, we had 4 ties in one day, with 3 of them being that lovely 0-0 result. Out of those 17 in 1920, only 5 of them actually included points, resulting in the 0-0 being the most common outcome by far, with 73 total occurrences. Like, golly gee, I can't wait to pull up and watch the Milwaukee Badgers. No, not that one. Take on the Hammond Pros. Oh wow! 0-0! What an incredible game. Of course, the vast majority of these games were played with teams that didn't last very long. The first tie that actually includes 2 teams we know came in 1921, with the Cardinals and Packers at least scoring some points in a 3-3 final. They would go on to have the second and third most ties in NFL history respectively, though they're both beat by the Chicago Bears with 44, including 5 against the Cardinals. Rounding out the top 10, we have the Giants and Lions with 34 each, the Commanders with 29, the Eagles and Steelers with 26.5 and 22.5 respectively. They both share a tie since in 1943 they were merged together in a 14-14 final against Washington. Finally, there's the Rams in 9th with 21 and the Niners in 10th with 16. The remaining 22 teams make up 145 of the 640 teams found here, including 1 from my good old Bucks, a 14-14 final against the Packers in 1980, in the midst of yet another forgetful year. Tragically, the Jacksonville Jaguars remain the only team in the current NFL to not have recorded a single tie, even though the Panthers, Ravens, and Texans all came in at or after them, and they all have one to their name. That leaves the remaining 189 teams for everybody else, mostly short-lived groups in the early years of the NFL. Out of these guys, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets have the most with 15, a team that existed for only 8 years. 5 of those 15 came in 1929 alone, including 3 0-0 games in 4 weeks. Yet despite having 5 ties to their name, they were still the 3rd best team in the league? The Rock Island Independents are an even more extreme case. Out of their 52 games of existence, 12 ended in ties, including a moment in 1920 where they went out on November 7th to face the Decatur Staleys, resulting in a 0-0 final. Just 4 days later, they traveled to play the Thorn Tornadoes, in a game that included a broken wrist, frigid temperatures, a costly fumble resulting in a touchdown, and a quick response that ended with both teams desperately flailing the ball around as time expired, in vain attempts to win. I guess that's just how football was back in the day. Staying on the Rock Island train, there's the moment where they faced the Bears in 1924, ending with, wowee, a 0-0 final. A little over a month later, they met again, and managed to actually score this time. Yay! Unfortunately, both teams were only able to muster a field goal each, ending in another tie. But no 2 teams loved playing each other more than the Packers and Lions, combining for 6 ties in their long history. Though they all came within a 16-year stretch, the first in 58 and the last in 73. Of course, we know how much these teams like each other, so much so that their dances have remained eternal, even as ties were slowly beginning to fizzle out. After the madness of the early NFL, their frequency dipped in the years to follow, and 1934 became the first season to post 0 ties. From then on, for the next 25 years, as teams, got better at playing football, ties became rarer and rarer. There was a little bump in the late 40s with the All-American Football Conference, with 10 ties in its brief 4-year existence, which included 2 each from the Yankees and Dodgers? I thought we were talking about football here. In the 60s, however, things began to change, with the introduction of the AFL, which brought about 24 ties in their 10 years of play before the merger with the NFL, who would put up 48 of their own, including 9 in 1967 alone, the most in one season since the early 30s. A potential reason as to why were, there's more teams, which meant more games being played, as well as the NFL going from a 12-game season to 14 in 1961 due to expansion. The Vikings only took 1 year to produce their first tie, a 24-24 contest that was a sign that we're finally not getting low-scoring affairs. The days of the 0-0 game are long gone, the final such occurrence coming in 1943 with the Giants and Lions. Along with that, the 3-3 sadly perished, the last one coming in 1937. Rest well, soldier. On the other side, we have Philly and Washington putting up 31 points each in the first tie to break the 30 mark in 1944. A game that saw Frank Filchock try to will his team to a victory single-handedly, dropping 291 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a pick, including receiving a pass from Rays legend Bob Seymour. Oh, wait, no, wrong guy. He would ultimately be responsible for the tying score, and the Eagles would run out of time to respond, sealing the 31-31 final. For 11 years, that remained the highest scoring tie until 1955, where the Giants and Browns scored 35 on each other. Then in 1960, in the first tie in the AFL, the Bills would find themselves up 38-7, and coach Buster Ramsey would be amazed at what he said was the greatest display of defensive football he's seen all year. But Broncos quarterback Frank Tripica would not back down, hitting Lionel Taylor with a pass that ended in an 80-yard reception and 6 points. He would get 2 more to cut it down to 38-28. Then, with Buffalo putting up a terrible punt, Denver had a short field that allowed Don Allen to score and make it a 3-point game. That set up Gene Mingo to seal the history, with a 19-yard field goal to lock in a 38-38 tie. The first time in NFL history any team that led by 30 or more points would fail to win. But hey, don't worry about it, Bills. You also got to be part of the second such game, and thankfully, you were on the other side of that comeback. That game remains the third highest scoring tie in NFL history, with the second being the 40-40 debacle from this very season. It also remains one of 8 tie games that have only happened once. Tie scoregami, if you will. The first came all the way back in 1929 with a 1919 final between the Giants and Detroit Wolverines. The only 33-33 tie in NFL history came in 1964 between the Cardinals and Browns, and 3 other games have come on this side of the millennium, but we'll get to those later. Before we move on, I do just want to mention the 2020 Pillars, a score which only happened thrice before 1962, then suddenly exploded with a 2020 being recorded at least once in every season from 1963 to 73. Why this one in particular? Who knows, but at least it's not 0-0. The 1973 season saw 7 total ties, continuing the renaissance of the 60s and early 70s. But that was about to change, as the NFL finally got off their ass and did something about this nonsense. Beginning in 1974, a 15-minute overtime period was introduced to hopefully eliminate tie games. Now, I can go off on a tangent about how overtime in the NFL is absolutely stupid and is only now starting to become fair after 50 years. But that's not the point. Alas, from 1974 all the way to 2011, it was sudden death, meaning whoever scored first wins. Also meaning that the flip of a coin can be the difference between winning and losing. How fun! Nonetheless, the pipeline immediately shut off after this rule change, as we went from 7 to just 1 in 1974. Funnily enough, just the second such overtime game in history, a 35-35 final between the Steelers and Broncos. Yes, the same Steelers that would go on to win the Super Bowl. Over the next 36 years, 492 more games would head to overtime, but only 16 of them would end in a tie. Of course, this would normally be the end of things, but given the fact that the league went out of their way to get rid of ties, means that when they do still happen, it's usually for a pretty strange reason. Take the 1976 affair between the Rams and Vikings, where the game headed to overtime locked at 10. Fran Tarkenton would lead Minnesota all the way down to the goal line with about a minute left, but the pass would be picked off by Rick Kay at the 1. Facing the entire length of the field, the Rams surrendered and took the tie. But hey, it could have been worse, as in 1981 the Jets and Dolphins would put together a pitiful overtime that featured a punt from the 37-yard line? Come on, that's only a 55-yard field goal. Though kicker Pat Leahy's longest was only 49, and he literally missed a 23-yarder earlier today. So maybe it's a good thing that they didn't go for it. But with no time left, he would come out and try a 48-yard attempt to win the game that predictably came up just short, sealing the tie after almost 4 hours of football. As if inspired by that performance, Neil O'Donoghue would show him up on Monday Night Football in 1983 against the Giants. The game itself was standard enough, with a 20-20 deadlock heading into overtime. There, both teams would get nothing going, but the Giants would be stopped deep in their own territory, and would give the Cardinals a short field. That allowed O'Donoghue to walk up and put the game away from 45 yards, and it's no good. But no worries, as the defense would get another quick stop, though what resulted was a pick and more offensive ineptitude from New York. With less than 2 minutes left, Roy Green would bring them all the way down to the 1, where instead of trying for the touchdown, they would go for a field goal on second down? Strange, but it's okay. It's literally a chip shot. There's no way O'Donoghue missed. Oh, come on! Well, the defense, probably pissed they have to go back out there again, force another turnover and give the Cardinals the ball with about 40 seconds left at the 25. What do they do with it? Throw one incomplete pass, then send O'Donoghue out there again for another try from 42. I think you know what happens next.
Oh no, poor baby.
The worst part is that the defense would get another interception as time expired, as if they were trying everything in their power to drag the pitiful offense to victory. But Wayne Smith would be unable to bring it to the house, and the two last-place teams would finish a stupid 20-20 tie. Missed field goals tend to be the most common cause for these ties, as just 3 years later, the Cardinals once again would miss in a crucial moment, as Eric Schubert would send a 37-yarder wide in the final seconds. But he wasn't alone, as the Eagles also had a missed kick in overtime. Paul McFadden from 43. Come on guys, it can't be that hard. It happened again with the Eagles in 97, with both teams missing a field goal in overtime, including Chris Boniol on the last play of the game from 40. That tie was what broke an 8-year drought, dating back to '89, which saw Nick Lowry, one of the most accurate kickers of the year, meet his most dangerous adversary, the slip and slidey turf in the mistake by the lake. With 4 seconds left in regulation, he would shank one from 45. But luckily, there would be an offsides penalty on the defense. So he would get another try from 39, only to miss that one as well. And in the last play of overtime, his 47-yard try would come just short. It was like trying to kick out of a sand trap, he would say. The 97 season would also give us a pitiful moment, where in yet another nationally televised game, we got 2 whole touchdowns between Washington and New York. Quarterback Gus Frerotte would get injured after his leg got jammed in the ground in a tackle. That didn't stop him from playing the rest of the game. Well, most of the game. As after opening the scoring, he would headbutt the wall, resulting in a jammed neck and forcing him to leave the game. Not that he missed much, the rest of the game would see one more score in a boring contest. Into the new millennium, we have a November game that was also part of a stretch of 8 ties in a row coming in November. The Falcons, after finding themselves down 17 with about 12 minutes left, would mount a furious comeback, with a quick drive to make it a 10-point deficit, and critical defense to get the ball back to Michael Vick as quickly as possible. A field goal would make it a 1-score game, then with seconds left, Vick would take it himself to send it to overtime. There, Atlanta would do all they could to try and win, as the defense would block a Steelers field goal. But the offense wouldn't get anything going, stalling out as their own field goal try was blocked. With 1 second left, Tommy Maddox would find Plaxico Burress from midfield, where he would catch the ball right on the edge of the end zone, coming just short of victory as time expired. Certainly action-packed to say the least. In 2012, after decades of unfair overtime play, the NFL put a little band-aid on the rules, making it so a field goal would still allow the other team a chance to respond, though a touchdown still ended it. That led to 2 such instances where both teams scored a field goal in overtime and nothing else, resulting in the only 26-26 and 37-37 ties in history, though the latter featured the classic missed field goal at the end of overtime. How fun. In 2016, the Seahawks and Cardinals would put together perhaps the saddest Sunday Night Football game ever, as both teams could only muster 3 whole points heading into overtime. There, the Cardinals would drive all the way to the 27 before knocking in a 45-yard field goal off the foot of Chandler Catanzaro. With the game on the line, Russell Wilson would bring his team to the 18 before they too stalled out, and settled for a 36-yarder from Steven Hauschka. Now into sudden death, both teams would get another long drive, with the Cardinals coming down to the 1-yard line before a delay of game backed them up to the 6. Still, a 24-yard chip shot should be easy money for...
Oh, he hits the upright! It's no good!
It has been a nightmare for this team.
Yeah, couldn't say it any better myself. But hey, don't worry, Chandler. Steven's got your back. As the Hawks would get to the 10 before lining up for a 28-yard try.
And he misses it! That's impossible!
Oh my God.
That is impossible!
Man, these guys should share a drink or something. Hell, we're even getting action across the pond, as Washington and Cincinnati would treat the London crowd to a thrilling game with a wet fart finish, as Dustin Hopkins would miss a 34-yarder in overtime to win it. In 2017, the extra period was shortened to just 10 minutes, which made ties at least a bit more common. There would be 7 more between then and 2024. The Browns, after coming off an 0-16 campaign, would break their losing streak in an unconventional fashion, as both Chris Boswell and Zane Gonzalez would miss field goals with 2 minutes left to end a 21-21 game. A week later, Mason Crosby would nail in the game winner at the end of regulation. Or at least he would have if Minnesota hadn't iced the kicker beforehand. Predictably, he would miss on his second try, but he would be overshadowed by Daniel Carlson, who would miss 2 attempts in overtime and would promptly be cut the next day. Just amazing. As if mirroring those last 2 games, we have the Lions ending their 12-game losing streak against the Steelers, which had Pittsburgh fumble the ball away twice in overtime. And we also have the Colts storming back to tie it up, only for kicker Rodrigo Blankenship to miss the game winner, where he was promptly cut soon after. Man, kickers have it rough. Finally, beginning in 2025, both teams are guaranteed to have a possession in overtime. Man, it only took them 50 years to make a fair system. Still, it didn't stop the Cowboys and Packers from putting together their masterpiece, the second highest scoring tie in NFL history. But for the first, we have to go back to 1964, where the Patriots and Raiders put together a masterclass of football. The first half was all Oakland, with Cotton Davidson lighting up the field with 3 touchdowns in the second quarter to build a 24-14 lead at the break. Tack on 10 more to open the third, and the Raiders sat up by 20. But the Patriots, fueled by their hometown crowd, would roar back with 21 unanswered points to go up by 1 with time running down. Oakland wasn't out of it yet though, as they responded with a score of their own to get up 40-35. They went for 2 to try to go up a clean 7, but failed, opening the door for Boston to come in and get their own score, going up 41-40. Wanting to go up a clean 3, they also went for 2, and succeeded, making it 43-40. But with time expiring, Mike Mercer would send a 38-yarder into the history books, completing a 43-43 tie. But why even bother? These games don't mean anything anyway. I mean, for the longest time, they were literally not even counted in the standings. And when they do happen, it's just the most deflating thing ever. Like, wow, we played 70 minutes of football and we can't even come up with a winner? But I suppose for a sport as fascinatingly stupid as football, it's only fitting. Maybe in the future they'll finally go along with the college football system, eliminating ties once and for all. Or maybe they won't, because the NFL is famous for taking forever to make basic rule changes. Now, right about now, normally I would say something profound about how, ties are the real spirit of the sport and we should cherish them. But nah, that's dumb. Ties are dumb.
I'm Kyle, and I love ties. I absolutely love this.
Amen, brother.